as dancers, we're so trained to always say yes.
Yes.
For fear that the job's going to disappear, or for fear that they're going to think that you're difficult or something like that, which is just so unfair, because actually we are human and we have a right to stand up for ourselves. And I'm learning that more and more as I get older.
Hello and welcome everybody to the very first episode of Dance Chat UK, the podcast where we delve into the vibrant world of professional dance. I'm Corina and I'm your host, and I can't imagine to launch this podcast with any other guest but Roseanna Bell. Roseanna is an Australian-born dancer who trained in New York and has worked in the UK as an actor, dancer and choreographer for the past 7 years. Roseanna is one of my very best friends and is actually one of the people who inspired me to do this podcast. Because me and Roseanna, we supported each other through the highs and lows of our careers and helped each other navigate our way through this crazy industry. And I'm very excited to share with you today what we've learned over the years. So enjoy your front row seat to this week's episode of Dance Chat UK. Welcome, Roseanna.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. I mean, of course, our conversation that we have on the regular is kind of the inspiration for this podcast. And I'm very happy to share our conversation today. You studied dance in New York.
Yeah.
How long did you live in New York?
I lived in New York for 4 years. So the school that I went to was 2 years, and then I stayed for an additional 2 years after that.
All right. And what's the dance scene like in New York? Is it very different to London? What are the differences you notice?
I mean, my experience in each has been so different, but I was also focused on very different things. So I can't necessarily compare them like just the dance scenes, because I studied musical theatre. I went down the musical theatre road for a bit in New York. You know, I would get up at 3 a.m. to line up for cattle call auditions, which were wild, just to sign up for like a makeshift audition.
Well, it wasn't even
sign-in
real.
sheet, and then we would have to go in afterwards, and sometimes they would stick to what we'd just signed up to, and sometimes they wouldn't. So it was always like you never knew if getting up at 3 a.m. was worth it. I did that for a little while, and then afterwards I did more like contemporary dance and dance theatre work. But then when I moved to London, I went down a more commercial dance road. So yeah, the differences were very different for me, but only because they were such different kinds of dancing, if that makes sense.
And also different stages of your career.
Yeah,
obviously.
totally.
Yeah.
Like I was fresh out of college in New York and really willing to work for free to do as much get as much experience as I could. And then when I moved to London, I made kind of a decision to not take on any unpaid work if I could help it.
Yeah. Did you feel like it was worth working for free in New York?
I do. Yeah. I do think it was worth it. I think in a lot of ways the industry, maybe this is sort of answering your question as well, because there are so many people, almost more people in New York trying to make it as a dancer or a performer. There are more just projects that people are working on for free, it seems like. Whereas in London, I found that trying to get a project of my own off the ground and bring people on board, no one was really willing to do that for free.
People are busy.
Yeah, people are busy, which is great. Like kind of speaks to the industry here, I guess. I mean, it was 7 years ago when I was in New York, so things have probably changed quite a bit.
Did you feel like the people in New York were different, the people in the dance industry? Was it like more or less competitive, or, you know, were people more supportive of each other?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's quite similar, actually. I think I found there was always a really encouraging atmosphere in New York as well as in London.
Okay.
I mean, I think what really helped was going back to the same classes regularly in both cities. And I found that the more that I got to know the other people in class and the choreographer, the more that I felt comfortable and part of that community. That was also something that I I started to take class more and more towards the end of my time in New York. I think I really like gave it my all for the last year that I was there. And then work started to come, and I was like, oh, this is how you get work. Right. So then when I moved to London, I made a real point to go to the same classes regularly and take and be in the same spaces with the same choreographers and the same people and build up my community that way.
Yeah. I actually wanted to ask you about your move. So once you moved, you had to kind of start again because it's all about building contacts and connections and stuff. How did you do that? So you went to class?
Yeah. I was really nervous at first to move to London. I'd moved to New York when I was 23 to study and then stayed on for a few more years, and it took me a really long time to feel like I found my people and my network, and I had just got an agent and things were happening, and so the thought of moving again and starting again was just really scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually found London to be so welcoming, and I think because I came with, I guess, like a lot of drive for knowing what I wanted, having come from where I'd come from already, I just made it my mission to get an agent when I first moved, and I made it my mission to take class and find the choreographers that I really gelled with. So I took as many different classes as I could in the first few months. Found a few that I really loved. Christine Andrea was one of them. Went to hers regularly, went to other choreographers regularly. And then, got to know the other people who were taking class, and then they were able to tell me about auditions that were coming up, and it was a lot of word of mouth. And then on the agent side, I just sent my CV and showreel to, I think, like 40 different agencies.
Yeah.
And one got back to me.
Yeah. I remember doing exactly the same.
Yeah.
Just send it all out there, see what sticks.
You've got nothing to lose, exactly. But actually, they ended up being a really great agent, and I was with them for almost 7 years in the end. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Do you feel like agents really help? Like, did you get a lot of work through the agency, or did you get work more yourself as well? Through just contact?
I think I got more work through myself.
Yeah.
I think having an agency gave me a lot more confidence to feel like I was backed by someone.
Yeah.
They also did get me quite a lot of great commercial auditions, so that helped me flex that muscle a little bit. Just being in front of a camera, being in front of a panel of people. So I was able to, practice auditioning because it's definitely a skill. Most of the work was my own, like I found it on different websites, or it was word of mouth, or choreographers who were like, come audition for this thing with me.
I always said, like, I'm my best agent.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the people who know you directly, they know what you can do, and they will get you the jobs that are right for you.
Yeah.
But then obviously if you have a good relationship with your agent, and I always kind of admired how you stayed in touch with your agent as well. Like, I know that you always send regular updates and pictures, and I feel like that's super important to make sure that your agent knows where you're at and what kind of work you are looking for, and you stay in their minds, so they put you forward for auditions.
Totally. And that was something that I learnt from my agent in New York.
Yeah.
She asked me to regularly update her monthly.
Yeah.
So I kind of took the outline of the email she'd wanted and then put it to the emails that I sent in London. So it was any updated photos, anything that you're working on, any updated videos, if you've got an updated showreel. And then I would also comb through Spotlight and see if there were any jobs that I was interested in and send them over. And I still do that now with my new agent. And usually they're like, yep, already done. No worries.
Yeah.
But I think it just shows that you're that you're in their mind, but also that you're aligned.
Yes. I mean, that's a perfect way to know that you're aligned and you're on the same page with your agent, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I felt like you established yourself really quickly in London because I met you pretty early on, right? Just after you moved
I think
here.
it was like the month that I moved here.
Yeah, you were like brand new. I remember you not even having your like good hair products yet and stuff.
Whoa, I've forgotten.
Yeah, I remember that. But anyway, so you established yourself really quickly and you did some incredible work. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the work you are most proud of?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, we met on a job in Barcelona from memory.
Yes.
That was an experience. I don't know if that's one that I'm most proud of.
Yeah, probably not as much.
But
we made a good connection.
That's how we met. I'm proud of that. I mean, I've been so fortunate in the work that I've got to do, and I do feel, even though there's a lot of like ups and downs, the kind of level of the work that I'm doing is growing, which I'm so grateful for. So I toured with Anastasia in 2019. I did her European tour.
Yeah, you did.
Which was amazing as one of her backup dancers. It had been such a dream of mine to tour with an artist, and the fact that it was her was just even more incredible. I remember dancing to her music when I was, I don't know, 12 or something in my bedroom and loving her so much, and then being able to be on stage next to her was wild.
It's incredible.
So that's definitely up there.
What sort of shows did you do with Anastasia?
We did so many different things. We did festivals. I remember one was on the beach, so you could see the moon and the ocean behind the crowd of people, and we were here looking at it. That was incredible.
Incredible.
We also did a few stadiums. We went to Russia, which was epic. I'll probably never go back to Russia again. I don't know if that needs to be included in this. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we did a couple stadium shows, like opening ceremonies for sporting matches. And we did a private party for someone in Morocco, which was pretty epic. So I mean, like everything you can think of, loads of different things. So that's one. I did a commercial also in 2019, which I'm really proud of too. It was the first time that I auditioned to be a dancer. It was a commercial that needed a big dance number at the end, but I couldn't make the day of the dancer call. So the producer was like, just come on the day of the lead call, and we'll just audition you like a dancer and then see what happens. But I ended up kind of somehow getting the lead role through being there on the day of the...
And also because you're amazing and beautiful. So...
Oh, but that was incredible. It was like 5 days of filming, and it was my first taste of screen acting. And I was alongside this amazing actor, Phil, who's now a good friend of mine. And then after we filmed, we also shot a whole bunch of promo photos that ended up on billboards all over London and on the side of buses. And
I remember that.
Whoa.
Suddenly I saw your face everywhere in the tube, on the bus, and I was like, woo, that's Roseanna.
It was wild. I was like, whoa, what's happening?
Was that like a moment where you felt like, wow, I've made it? Like,
kind of, but I feel like that feeling of I've made it, it maybe hits you for a tiny second, but then it disappears. Or it's like the goalpost of what making it looks like is always moving. So it was a feeling of like, this is incredible. I can't believe this is happening right now. But it wasn't like I've made it. It was like, okay, what's next?
Yeah. I also think like I've made it, because it's a moment, isn't it? And then that moment passes. Yeah. And then the next month comes. Yeah. And you might not have any work.
Yeah, and that's the trouble. It kind of goes from being something so high, and then it almost feels like you're back to square one. And I definitely felt that because those 2 jobs I just mentioned were 2019 and then the pandemic hit. So it was kind of going from such a high to then no work for a little while. But that slowly increased. I've had some really amazing jobs in the last couple of years. One of them was performing. I've done a few of these now, performing for different operas.
Yes.
So I've worked for the Royal Opera House a couple of times and Glyndebourne a couple of times. And my first job at Glyndebourne, it's like in the countryside, this beautiful opera house. I was asked to cover the lead opera singer's track, not to learn her singing or to lip sync or anything like that, but just to be able to walk around the stage.
Yes.
In case she got COVID. It was early 2021, so they were still wary of that. And she ended up getting COVID. And so 4 out of the 10 shows that she was supposed to perform in, she couldn't. And so I had to step into the lead role. It was a show called Louisa Miller, and her role was Louisa Miller. So she was basically on stage for the whole time, which meant I was basically on stage for the whole time. And that was so scary at first because I had not very much warning for the first show, but I had a bit of time to practice for the next few. But at the end of the performances, to stand at the front of the kind of chorus of people on stage and bow in front of an audience like that was, I'm never ever going to forget that moment of having that applause for me and also the woman who ended up singing. We were kind of sharing the role.
Because in opera, I mean, that's a whole different part of the industry that I've discovered as well, that I've been in pretty full time recently.
Yeah.
As a performer, you're quite like in the background. It's not about you as a dancer or actor, I mean. And then suddenly to step into the lead role of the lead opera singer, like that must be a crazy feeling.
It was incredible.
And probably every actor, every dancer's dream who performs in opera.
I mean, it all happened so quickly. I didn't really have enough time to think about it. But I know that there were 2 other guys who were asked to cover the male roles.
Yeah.
And when I was asked, they were both just like, oh no, and then quickly got studying to make sure that they knew.
Did they have to step in as well?
They didn't know, but
okay.
Yeah.
I think the time, like early 2021, was probably the most likely for that to happen because they couldn't just fly someone in, because that's what they usually do. They fly in somebody who's done the role before and then...
This is like very much a tangent, but the second show I did at Glyndebourne, they helicoptered the lead. There were only 3 people in the world who knew the specific role.
Wow.
The lead had COVID. The cover who'd been rehearsing also got COVID. And the third person was in like North England somewhere and had to be helicoptered down mid-show.
Crazy.
Wow.
I remember being in a show during that time and somebody got COVID, and then everybody, or people who weren't like double vaccinated yet, had to isolate for 10 days during the rehearsal period, and they came back like the day of the general and like didn't have rehearsals. So it was just crazy. And during those 10 days, like during stage and orchestra, stage and piano, like the few of us that were left had to cover all the tracks of all the actors and all the dancers. Yeah, it was a crazy time.
Then the last job we'll talk about is one that I did, I think 2 years ago, where I was dancing on Queen Charlotte, the Netflix television show.
Yes, right.
And that was quite a new experience. I'd done a little bit of film and television work before, but nothing on this scale. The choreographer is just such a honey, Jack Murphy, and then his assistant Nicole. Just an incredible team that I am still so grateful to have been involved in and with, and the other dancers were amazing. The scale of the show was epic. Our costumes, we had these corsets and then big bolsters. I don't know what they're called, but those like big hip things, and we were doing these jigs with men who were dressed so beautifully outdoors. It was a 3-day shoot, but it was overnight because it was a night party that it was happening. So long hours and tiring because we were working through the night, but it was amazing.
Did you actually feel like you were at a ball, or was it so like set like that?
No, I felt like I was at a ball, and
Amazing.
I definitely had a moment of like, oh my gosh, I've made it.
Yeah. So you just talked about all the incredible people you've worked with, but I also know that you've worked with some more difficult choreographers, agents, managers. How do you deal with that when you're on a job, it's not going well, your boundaries are being pushed in some sort of way? How do you deal with it?
Yeah. It's always really difficult to know exactly how to deal with certain personalities and in certain situations. I try to be as upfront as I can be with the person that I feel is crossing a line. So I remember the job that we met on
Yes.
in Barcelona. The choreographer was being quite inappropriate to some of the dancers, and I said that to him. I think you're being very inappropriate. He didn't like that, and he's never hired me again. So, but I at least felt like I was standing up for myself and for the other dancers. I also remember another job that I had where another job where it was on stage, and I was in a simulated sex moment on stage.
Yes.
And I've done a little bit of training in intimacy coordination, and the way that it was handled was not in line with anything that I'd learnt. It was just figure it out while everyone else on stage was watching us, and all the panel of the directors, assistant directors and everyone were watching us. So
how many people were there in the room?
40, 50 maybe.
Wow.
Okay. Like the chorus and then the team.
Yeah.
All with us lying on the floor trying to figure out how to do this sex scene. And
yeah, that's not
I was so caught off guard, and in the moment I didn't know how to handle it. So we just figured it out. But then some members of the team came up afterwards and apologized, and I was able to then say, like, that is not how it should have happened. And I'd really like to have another rehearsal where there's an assistant director present and we can figure it out with them. And in hindsight, I wish that I had said before it even got to that place, if this is what you want us to do, can we work on this separately?
Yes.
And then come back into the space with everybody.
With somebody
else. Always with somebody else.
Because when it comes to those kind of scenes, simulated sex, violence or whatever, there needs to be, a choreographer, an intimacy coordinator, a director, whoever is important. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's always tricky, and I think I'm learning as I'm getting older that it's okay to push back and it's okay to say no. And I think as dancers, we're so trained to always say yes.
Yes.
For fear that the job's going to disappear, or for fear that they're going to think that you're difficult or something like that, which is just so unfair, because actually we are human and we have a right to stand up for ourselves. And I'm learning that more and more as I get older, and actually am finding, I don't know if it's because I'm a bit older or just because I'm able to back myself this way, but it almost has the opposite effect, where people see that I am able to stick up for myself, and they respect me for it, and they want to work with me because of that. So I always try and be very respectful in the way that I handle difficult situations, but communicate as clearly as I can that I'm not comfortable with something, or something needs to be handled a different way.
Yeah, I think being respectful is super important. I kind of learned to just assess in the moment, or be very careful already reading my contract and make sure that it's in line with what I feel like should be in the contract or should not be in the contract. But once you sign, you kind of agree to those terms, and then kind of think, okay, what is actually a big problem and needs to be changed, or also can be changed? What do I need to actually bring to the people who've hired me or who are not conducting themselves like they should? And what's just a bit of an inconvenience, or is just kind of sucks in the moment. But to just not just sit there and complain. I think that's not helpful, and that's when people are gonna think you're being difficult. It's when you just complain.
Yep. So if you're on a job and things aren't going super well, realizing there's maybe not something I can do about this in this moment. I'm just going to get on with it. But then I'm going to communicate to the choreographer, that wasn't okay. We got treated this way. Our time wasn't respected, or something like that. And that is something that I've done in the past. Or if it's a job I've been booked through an agency, midway through the job, I'll call the agent and just say, just a heads up, they want us to stay an extra 3 hours past what we agreed. And then they'll call. And it's easier to have when there's someone else who can fight for you in that way. But it's also really important to learn how to do that yourself. And I'm glad you brought up contracts, because that was a huge lesson that I learnt. It was a job that I got in COVID, and it was a photo shoot, and the contract was so vague, and I knew it was so vague, and it was the end of the shoot. It was a room full of men. They were like, can you just quickly sign this contract before we pack up? And I read through it, and it was just like basically saying these images can be used anywhere forever. Yeah. And I was like, wait, what are the terms? Where is this going? And he was like, oh, it's just like a half hour. It's just going to be for like half a month online, 30 seconds of like, it's nothing. Yeah.
And like, this doesn't really apply to you. Just,
right. So I was like, oh, okay. And signed it. Next thing I see, my face is up on billboards in the subway. Yeah. And fortunately I was wearing a face mask, so you couldn't quite see me, but it was just, I felt so taken advantage of and so angry at myself, because I knew that the contract wasn't right. And so again, learning to say no, even though you've done the photo shoot, it doesn't matter. You can say no. This is not, I need this to state exactly where it's going to go, for exactly how long it's going to be up there for. If you want it to be on this wherever, then pay me more for it. Yeah.
Or if you have an agent, like discuss it with your agent, say, okay, you can send this to me. Even if it's a release form and they're like, you need to sign. Actually, this happened to me on a very high profile Netflix show where we didn't have a contract. We did the shoot, and then at the end of the shoot, we didn't even know what we're getting paid. I just kind of trusted that it's going to be good, because this is like this big Netflix show. But yeah, at the end of the shoot day, they just handed us these release forms, and we were like, we don't even know what we're getting paid here. Like, we're definitely not signing this. And then all the power was kind of in our hands, and we could fight for good pay because they needed to use the footage. We were in crazy locations with the lead actors and hundreds of extras, and they needed us to sign this. So yeah, we were dealt a good, hand of card. But
I think also if you don't have an agent to necessarily take it back to and ask for them, if you're with equity, I think there are people there as well who you can contact.
That's a good
or
point.
Even a friend.
Exactly,
you could
even
a
friend.
Pretend that your friend is your agent.
Yes.
I remember a guy in New York had a different email that was his manager, but it was just him on a different email pretending.
That's so clever.
You could almost do that. So you've got, it seems like you've got more backing, even though it's just you or a friend.
Yeah. But I think, just to come back to what can you do in the moment, like really assess what you can actually do, what actually can change. Because I find it, if you just start complaining, then you will become the difficult dancer and you will not get booked again, and nothing will actually change. Like, just assess what can actually be done, or what's actually a big problem, or what can you get on with as well. Sometimes it's easier to just get on with it
100%,
and it's not a big deal. But some things
I also think that in most of the work that I've done, I think half of it, or even less than half of it has been how I am, as how talented I am, and the other half to like 70% is you just want to get on with the people that you're working with. You're in very stressful situations, sometimes very long hours, traveling around, like being a good person is, and I think that kind of speaks to how you deal with conflict and being respectful. And
100%. I feel exactly the same. I feel like I've done a lot of work just because I was reliable, on time,
Yeah.
and I will get on with the work and figure it out. And, you know, not because I'm the best dancer in the UK, like not at all, far from.
No, you're amazing.
But yeah, definitely. But that doesn't mean that you can't stand up for yourself and like ask respectfully and professionally for good conditions and decent pay and all of that.
Yeah.
How do you deal, as we said, we kind of mentioned before, you have these moments where you feel like, oh my God, I'm doing this. I'm a professional dancer. How do you deal with then afterwards when maybe you have some downtime, a few weeks of no work or not the same level of work?
Oh, it's really tough. I find it challenging to say the least. Going from such highs, and then it does feel like you drop into these lower places. It's hard not to think that you're back to square one. You're back to the beginning again. And I think it's really important to remember that all of those experiences do accumulate. And even though it feels like it's a very humbling experience, that's for sure. It definitely keeps your ego in check, which I guess is a good thing ultimately. But yeah, I find it challenging, and I just try and keep my mental health in check and keep myself as occupied as I can. So taking class is really good, or working on my own creative things, even aside from dance, is good.
Yeah.
Also just working a different job, something that's completely separate where you can just show up and do your thing and then move on.
Do you think that helps, or can it also be distracting?
Yeah, I think it can be distracting, but I guess it just depends on what your approach is. I remember in New York I would be like, well, I've got my waitressing job, so I can't make this audition the next day, and it was almost like a self-sabotaging thing.
Yeah, it's an easy way out, because obviously it's hard to go to auditions. Yeah. It takes some guts and some preparation, and you have to push yourself. So if you have an excuse not to go.
Yeah, I went to this Dancers Inc. workshop, and it was the founder, Christopher Menno, who said, when you go, like, it's such a big deal to go to an audition. You got yourself up, you got yourself ready, you got out of your house, you went, you did the thing. Buy yourself a little present afterwards. Yeah. And I really took that on. And after every audition I went to, I'd go and I'd get a coffee, or I'd go to a charity shop and get a really nice cheap shirt or something. And it was just always this thing afterwards to be like, you did a hard thing and I'm going to give you a little treat.
That's so nice.
Yeah, I love that little piece of advice. I haven't implemented that for a while, but
I love that. That's so cute.
Yeah.
I've never done that. I always really feel like talking to people after an audition, because you're so hyped up.
Yeah.
And you have all these emotions, like if it went good or bad or whatever, or you don't know yet how it went. Like, I always feel like I need to talk. So it's really nice to know somebody in the audition, and then you can go for coffee afterwards.
Yeah, debrief afterwards. Yeah. That's a good shout too.
Like getting it all out there.
Yeah. But other ways that I deal with the in between time for work, I think, is also talking to friends. I think is really important. Meditating, going for walks by myself, listening to music. It's all part of the keeping my mental health in a good place, because you're going to have, it's like, that's just the nature of it. It's always up and it's always down. And it's just finding ways to be able to stay level. So even when the highs are happening, you're able to, hold yourself in this level place.
Yes. And I also think I kind of noticed that with you sometimes. I think it's so good to have friends who remind you that it's just a phase, it's just a dip, and that you've just done incredible work, and that you are going to do incredible work. Like, because I know that with you, sometimes you even have something booked already for in 2 weeks' time, and you feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm not even working. And I'm like, don't you start the contract in 2 weeks?
I have such a short memory. It's so silly.
But you've just finished this incredible thing.
Oh my gosh, you've given me so much incredible advice over the years that I don't even, I probably don't even realize how much they've helped me.
No, but I mean, likewise. But yeah, I feel like it's really important to just be aware that everybody goes through this, no matter what you see on social media. I mean, that's a whole other thing, like scrolling and just seeing everybody's amazing work. I mean, if you have 30 people that you follow and each one of those 30 people posts one good thing that happened to them in 1 month, then you see one incredible thing every day, and you think everybody's always in incredible work, and that's just not the truth. Like social media is not real life, and that's also a really important thing to remember, I think, to just be like, everybody goes through this, and just remember you know that it's gonna turn around again, and you're gonna have work again, and you just need to ride this down phase. Just down out. Time, look after yourself, and just you know, as you say, take class and stay with it. But
stay social as well. I think it's really easy to just become a bit of a hermit when you're waiting for the phone to ring or your email to ping or whatever, but just get outside.
Yeah. I also find it really important to plan things and not just sit around waiting for that self-tape to come in or for that last minute job or audition. Like, just, you know, plan things, plan holidays, plan getaways, plan social activities.
It's so nice to have something to look forward to.
What makes it all worth it for you? Like, what are those moments where you feel like, yeah, I love what I do?
I think when it's a moment where it almost feels like all the experiences that I've had have been leading to a specific moment. So whether it's weeks of rehearsals or one other job where something went wrong and you were able to learn from that and then readjust for the moment, it's almost like you get into that flow state and that you're so present in that moment because you've worked so hard to get there, and it's just like, you just ride it out.
Yeah, like this was worth it.
Yeah.
I think also when you're on a bad job or like when things are not going well, you always learn something.
Totally, yeah.
We've said this before as well, isn't it? That sometimes when we are when you were put in that spot where you suddenly had to go on as a lead role, you were so prepared. Because of all but eventually, you know, more prepared than at the beginning of your career, because we've done shows where it was super hectic and chaotic and we had to learn 10 minutes of choreography like half an hour before we went on, and you know, we've done all that, and that was stressful, but you also take something away and then you're prepared for those like moments.
Absolutely. I think you can learn almost more from things going wrong or bad jobs than the good things.
Yeah.
Which I think ultimately makes you a better person and a better performer, and just makes you better.
Yeah, definitely.
All around.
Like even taking a bad class, you're like, oh, you know, today things didn't go well, or this teacher I really didn't like. But then if you teach yourself or something, you're like, oh, I would do this.
Yeah, I now know what not to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. So you've also been lucky or in the position where you were on a panel at an audition or, you know, part of that selection process. Is there anything you've learned from that, from being on the other side?
Yeah. It showed me ways to audition, like things that catch the people's eyes.
What are those things?
So like making eye contact, wearing colour, just like having an open energy so that you feel that there's someone who you could work with.
Yes.
I think that, and also that you kind of leave you can see people who've left their ego at the door. Also that like desperate, I need this job, that energy really feeds into it too, and you can sense that too. So I think like the people who come in really calm, I could take this, but I could leave it too, like whatever. Yeah. Even though everyone wants it, obviously. They wouldn't be there otherwise. And also that the decisions for why people get hired over other people or why they get selected for something over other people is not personal. I would take it so personally, and I still do. It's hard not to, because it's you, and you are your product in a way, but it's not personal. Being told no is not about you as a person. It's just about what the project needs, and there's so much that goes into the decision before it even gets to the audition phase.
Yeah.
So just I think it's helped me to understand how much more there is to it than just you as the dancer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what you said about being like not being so tense and just being approachable, I think I always felt like, oh, I'm just one of many, I'm just a number that sort of fills this room of auditions. But being on the other side, it's like so important that, as you said, like making eye contact, giving that feeling of like, I'm the person you want to work with, you know. I'm also kind of not putting yourself down as a dancer.
Yeah.
Like the people on the panel are not above you. Like they're doing their job and you're doing your job.
You
and
need
you need
each
to
other.
see yourself like that. You need to see like, okay, I'm bringing this. What have you got to offer me? Sort of thing. Like, you know.
For sure.
And not just being like, oh,
Please
hire
pick me.
Like,
Yeah.
oh. Yeah. Coming with that energy.
Yeah, and I think like it can help to have listened to calming music beforehand or do some kind of meditation. Just get your mind into a place so that when you step into a room, you're not instantly in this anxious state, that you can come in with that calmness. And then that like I've been told from directors before, you have such a calm energy, and I just wanted to stand near you to feel that before I went back into.
That's amazing.
Like I think it really does help overall if you can stay calm.
And you just never know what they're looking for.
Totally.
Like I've been in auditions where I was like, I almost went home before they told us the results. And then I got chosen, or I got, you know, to the next round, and I was like, what? And vice versa, where I felt like I smashed it and then I didn't get it. And I felt so confident, and maybe somebody next to me felt that from me and felt insecure. But actually they got it over me, you know? Like you never know what they're looking for. Just know what you bring and come in with that calmness and that confidence.
Yeah, totally.
What's next for you? What are you working on at the moment?
So I am doing another opera actually my rehearsals start next week.
Exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited. They want hippie dancers who can dance hip hop. So I feel like
very niche. Perfect for you.
I'm ready for it. So that'll be about 3 months through the summer. I think I'm in a bit of a phase or a place at the moment where I can sort of sense my work as a performer or as a dancer anyway, is sort of coming to not a natural end necessarily, but it's just slowing down a little bit. I'm very interested in acting. I would love to do more film and television acting, so I've been taking classes and auditioning for different things here and there when they come through. And I've done quite a bit of choreography and movement direction work, and so that's something that I'm also very keen to do more of. But how I get there, I'm still trying to figure out whether I study, maybe do some more study at a college or at a university in London, or just
for movement direction
and choreography, or I just keep going on the freelance track and try and build work that way. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's next after this specific job. Something might come in and I'll be set.
You never know.
Who knows?
what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Something might come in very sudden.
Yeah.
Unexpected.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, I'll see.
Great. Well, good luck with your next job.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're going to be amazing. I'm going to come watch, of course.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
And thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We have many more incredible guests and conversations coming up, so please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out. You can find us on all social media platforms under Dance Chat UK. That's the easiest way to get in touch, and we love to hear from you. Also, if you could spread the word and tell your friends about us, we would love to welcome them into our little community. Enjoy your dancing, and I'll see you next time!